All right, welcome back to the channel. First, we're going to obviously review today's session, and what better of a way to start it than covering the memory names, as that was the main probably focus of today overall, especially with yesterday's moving Korea overnight that saw a 10% drop in a single day and a circuit breaker in one session. So we're going to start obviously with SanDisk. So on SanDisk now we're starting to see some capitulation signs on the daily chart. We see the volume starting to pick up and not yet oversold, but getting there. But yeah, serious volume the last two sessions and a lot more today as we start getting the gap downs and sort of an extension from the moving averages. We are now sitting at a 35 or so percent extension below the 20-day moving average. So it sets up for a possible mean reversion. I think possibly tomorrow it can be ready. Let's see if we get one more gap down, maybe into support, maybe even to the 200, but ideally maybe here under 1,000, and that could set up a nice mean reversion opportunity to possibly get back up to like 1,500. This thing moves quickly, so I could see it bounce easily 30 to 40% quickly. We've already seen a 50% drop in the span of about 1 month. So yeah, memory is one to be watching for sure. Not these names. Yeah, even DRAM possibly one more if it gaps down, but don't know if I'll be playing them personally. Another one that I had on focus yesterday actually was SpaceX. SpaceX, I was saying that it is time to probably short the 2x short ETF, meaning shorting the leverage ETF that bets on downside. So basically you're betting on SpaceX going up. So in that case, SpaceX did finish the day up about 2.5%, almost 3% when we factor in the after hours move. And SSPC, which was the short ETF, was down 5.5%. I ended up covering my position just because had better opportunity that I wanted to move the money to, so I covered the short. But still, I do think it's more viable and it can still provide gains in the future. I think this ETF, I mean, obviously it's probably going to go to zero eventually, but even the short term, I do think SpaceX has a chance for a relief bounce. And on that note, some other space names too have been very beat up, like Intuitive Machines Lunar. This thing now is down about 75% off the highs in a span of 9 consecutive down weeks. So that is a lot to see 9 consecutive weeks of downside, and a 75% drop in 2 months is a lot. So possibly you can see it mean revert pretty easily back up to the 14, 15, even higher into 17, 18. On a daily time frame too, we're starting to get the RSI divergence on the daily chart with the lower low on the chart and a higher low in the RSI forming. So one to watch there. Another one, which was the main focus of my video yesterday, was Apple. And I do think Apple is setting up in a clear bearish divergence now. You can see it clearly on the daily chart. And this honestly reminds me a lot of what we saw on the Kospi just about a month ago. And I was talking about this a lot on Twitter, how the Kospi was forming a topping pattern here with this major bearish RSI divergence on the daily chart, where we saw higher highs on the chart and lower highs on the RSI. And we're seeing and what happened after, the thing proceeded to fall a lot, like 40% almost. So we're seeing a similar thing now in Apple, where Apple is forming higher highs. We have put some drawings here. Oops. We have a high there, one more high, and another up here. So we have 3 higher highs, but at the same time we have 3 lower lows on the daily RSI. Obviously this can be invalidated pretty easily if we see Apple continue to extend up maybe to like 360, it can invalidate that pattern. But as of now, we still have that daily divergence. Now, pulling down the weekly chart again, we have the divergence again, where the weekly RSI, we have a major to higher high that is 10% higher than the previous high. And we have an RSI reading that is lower on the weekly time frame. So that is, again, a bearish divergence. And we tend to see that a lot of times before a stock tops and falls. You see that bearish divergence. So yeah, overall, Apple is getting there. And I covered it in the last video too, and I'm continuing to look at it now. I do think it's setting up for a very good short. And I think probably ready already now, but need to leave some room to add in case it does try to go up more. Some other names I wanted to cover was TAN, which is Solar. Again, I covered it in the last video a little bit yesterday, but I still do think it's worth covering. Again, crazy volume today. We saw another really big print on TAN, even bigger than yesterday, 122% of daily average volume, $63 million, 1.3 million shares at 48.83. So back-to-back days where big prints have been hitting on TAN, which is a solar ETF. So definitely interesting. A lot of these solar stocks have pulled into very interesting levels on a daily and weekly time frame. With Enphase that reported earnings today has pulled back into some major support area after dropping 50%, and a decent reaction after the earnings, up a little bit. First Solar, again, another one too, has pulled back into the strong support between 190 and 200. So yeah, makes a lot of sense. We don't know if that's a buy or a sell, but it does make a lot of sense for that to be a buy on TAN, those trades. So we will see what happens there. Other than that, we have some big earnings coming up this week. We have Microsoft and Apple. Microsoft, I think, is tomorrow. Yeah, Microsoft is tomorrow, and the chart has basically been chopping the last few days in between. So I don't really have a bias really going to that earnings. No position. I'm not sure what it would do. And Apple also reports, I think, on Thursday. Yeah, so Apple is another one. And I do believe Meta should be reported. Yeah, Meta as well tomorrow. Google already reported. I think AMD should be reporting. That's next week. But take a look at some more semis just to see. We've seen some decent reactions like so far. I do think that tomorrow's gap down would probably be the climax in the selling if it's a gap down. What we've seen on the Qs, I mean, back to back, this not really a hammer, but close to a hammer. We have lower wicks on both the days, and we have 5 consecutive down days on the Qs. Could see the next gap up be bought up into a green candle, and we do have FOMC tomorrow as well, so that's one more thing to keep an eye on. But yeah, I don't think shorting, there's good risk reward at all on the short side for a lot of these semiconductor names and for memory. Do think those are setting up now for parabolic longs, but I do think Apple has a short setup opportunity, and along with that, don't see much. I do see a mean reversion maybe in space, and solar looks good if they can recover, but other than that, that's probably it for today. Don't have too much on watch. There will be a lot of clarity after tomorrow's FOMC and earnings. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.